starting our 34th edition of our Chumash. And we are on page 14 in the ArtScroll Chumash, Parshas Bereshis, which is Genesis, and we are on chapter 2. Chapter 2, we are at the last pasuk, which is pasuk 25. So the last week, let's just remember where we were last week. We finished off last week in saying that Adam and Eve, they realized that they can be husband and wife. And the Torah tells us that since Adam appreciated his wife, the Torah gives us a wise way ahead and says, therefore, a man should leave. A man should leave the house of his father and his mother, and he should cleave to his wife, and this is how they will become one basar, one flesh. And we did point out that how do they become one flesh? By cleaving to another, because when they create a child, then that child is a product of both of them, and therefore the Torah considers this as being a new creation, which both of them have got their involvement. Adam and Eve are involved in the same creation. So, and welcome.
Just started. Oh, you just started.
We're waiting for you.
Thank you.
We are on page 14. We are doing a shortened version today, so you'll be.
Who's later?
Let's see. That is. So basically, we are at the last pasuk on chapter 3, which is pasuk 25, and here it says the following: now that we have got a female and a man, and a male and a female, the Torah tells us something amazing. And they were both. Here the translation is naked, but I'll soon tell you something about that translation. Who were the two which were naked? Ha'adam ve'ishto, Adam and his wife, ve'lo yisbashoshu, and here it says on the English side, and they were not ashamed. Okay, so it seems to be that when you are naked, you have to be ashamed, and because otherwise the Torah wouldn't make a point of it. Yeah? Why does the Chumash make a point of the fact that they were not ashamed? So it seems to be that this was out of character, or maybe that the character will change soon. And as we know that the story goes, that afterwards they start realizing that they are naked, they start hiding, and they wait till Hashem finds them. And this is how we usually on the surface read those psukim. The word arumim can also mean clever. Yeah, arum also means to be clever, and in that sense it would mean that they were both very clever. And what does it mean to be very clever? Very clever means that there is no corruption in that cleverness. You are completely all over clever, and there is no space in that cleverness for anything to be not clever. Okay, so in that case it will mean this, that because they were so clever and they understood everything, and they also understood that if they are not covered up, that there's nothing wrong with that. Because if you understand what it means not to be covered, then there is no problem with it. It only becomes a problem not to be covered up when there is something which you don't want somebody else to see. If you are specifically fat, for example, or if you are, I don't know what, you've got a specific sign with which you were born at a certain time, or if you had a sunburn, I don't know what, if there's anything which you want to cover up, then it needs to be covered up. But if you can explain yourself why that is which somebody else can see, then there's no problem with that. And that would mean they were both very clever, and so clever that they understood that there's nothing to, there's no, what's the word?
Conceal?
There's nothing to be concealed. Exactly, there's nothing to be concealed. The Zohar says that as long as Adam and Eve did not sin, then they were completely see-through. Yeah, what you do these days with X-rays, or which you do with what are the other machines called? MRIs, yeah, MRIs, X-rays, which give you the opportunity to see the very inside of yourself. This is how a human being looked like before Adam sinned. You were completely see-through, and what did you see? What was the core of everybody? How deep could you see? You could see into your neshama. Yeah, everybody's neshama would have been completely apparent and out for show. Yeah, anybody could have passed by and look at you and realize who your neshama is, what your core is, what your special neshama is, how specific it is, how unique it is, and so on and so forth. But after the sin happened, what, as we will see in a few psukim to come, what the sin made was that the sin covered up that neshama. I don't know, I mentioned it before, I don't know if you heard me saying this, but the nail on the finger is see-through. If you, yeah, okay. So if you look at your nail, then what do you see next is flesh, which is under the nail. You have to imagine that Adam was completely made out of that material of nail. Right? It was completely made out of this, and therefore it was see-through. The skin which we have is a shell which covers that up, and that was only made possible through the sin. That's the reason why on Motzei Shabbat, when we make when we make the brocha on the light, then we look at our fingernails. Why are we looking at the fingernails? What's the problem? But because we want to remember and remind ourselves that this is what we looked like before the sin. And Motzei Shabbos, that point when we make that is the first point in Adam's first 24 hours existent after the sin. And this is what we remind ourselves every week on Motzei Shabbos. When we look, if you missed it out on Motzei Shabbat, then on Sunday, if you make up the on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, which you can still do, then you don't do Borei and you don't look at your fingernails, because that only makes sense on Motzei Shabbos, because on Motzei Shabbos was the point when Adam realized that for the first time, that he's not anymore made out of nails, but he's got something else which covers him up, his sin. Right? So this is what they looked like. Now, there's another word in this pasuk which is quite interesting. It says here, Velo yitbashashu. And we translated it to be that they were not ashamed. That word, to be ashamed, is somewhat weird to call it lo yitbashashu, because the correct word grammatically to use here would have been velo hitbaishu. Yeah? Not velo yitbashashu. Velo hitbashu. Again, I don't have a board here to write it down. But the shoresh, the source of the word, the root of the word, would be bet and shesh, bet and shiam, yeah, bosh. To be ashamed is bosh. Now, yit bashoshu. If we look at this word, we have got two shiams after each other, and up front, before the first shiam, there's a base. If we take the base, the shian and the shian, then we get a word which is boshesh. Boshesh. Now, there's one other time, only one other time in the Torah, where the Torah uses that word boshesh. And that is, I think, in Parshat Kisah. Let's have a look if that's true. Because the story goes like this: soon we are coming to that, because it will be Shiva Asar Tammuz, and the Jewish people are standing around the mountain of Sinai and waiting for Moses to come down. And eventually, the time which they think he told them that he will come down comes, and it doesn't. What do? They do the golden calf. Right? They're doing the golden calf. Now, why are they doing the golden calf? So the Torah says, Ki boshesh Moshe larevet min ha'ar. Because Moshe Boshesh, and we have to see what that means, to come down the mountain. Boshesh, the Jewish people are waiting for Moses to come down, to climb down the mountain with the tablets, and they remember that he told them originally when he went up that he's going to stay there for 40 days and 40 nights. Now they have counted the 40 days and 40 nights, and the 40 days and 40 nights are over and he's not here. So they think to themselves, where is Moses? And they think to themselves, who knows? Maybe he decided not to come down. Maybe he likes it so much on that mountain that he wants to stay there. Or maybe he died. Or maybe he decided to go down on the other side of the mountain. They don't know what's going on with him. So the Gemara in Shabbat says many, many different things which these Jewish people thought. And they were always calming themselves down. And they were thinking, no, it can't be probably, he's a good leader and he will surely come down at one point. And when the Satan saw that they always try to calm themselves down, what he did was he created a cloud in the sky which looked like as if that Moshe Rabbeinu is dead and he's lying on his beer. Beer, is that the word?
A beard.
No, beer. A beer where a dead person lies on.
Okay.
That's a beer, right? B-I-E-R?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this is what Moshe Rabbeinu looked like. That's what the Satan made. Very, very unfair, right?
Why do you need Satan?
Well, this is what we learned many weeks ago, that the Baruch Hu needed the Satan to be here because otherwise we wouldn't have any challenges. We'll speak about this more in the weeks to come when we speak about the tree of knowledge, or the fruit which Adam and Eve ate prematurely. Then we will have more insight about that. But the point is that this is what the Satan made. When the Jews saw this, then they said, no, he's surely not coming back anymore because he is dead. And that's when they made the golden calf. But before they were thinking that, it says, Ki Moshe Boshesh lavedet min ha'ar. It looks like he is delayed. Boshesh in that sense means he's delayed to come down. The Gemara says, Ba Shesh. Shesh is the number 6 in Hebrew. And they said to themselves, they looked on their watch and they said, the 6th hour of the day has come. And he told us that he'll be back on the 6th day, on the 6th hour of that day, 40 days, 40 nights, 6th hour, and he's not coming. And then they see this image in the sky of Moshe lying on a bier, and they're thinking to themselves, now he surely doesn't come back. The hour is gone, and we see that picture in the sky. So therefore, we are going to do a new leader, and they're doing the golden calf.
Well, why did they choose golden calf?
Pardon?
Why did they choose golden calf?
Okay, so that's a question for another time. But the point was that they didn't choose a golden calf. What they chose was to get Aaron to create something for them. And what Aaron did was he took all the gold and all the jewelry, all the golden jewelry of the women and of the ladies, of the girls, and he threw it into the fire. That is what came out. But that's not for now. We will have to speak about that another time. So Boshesh means to delay. Okay, now if in this case, when it says here, Vayiyu shneim arumim, ha'adam ve'ishto ve'lo yitbashashu, so we have to relate it with that word Boshesh, which we find at the golden calf. What's the relation? What's the connection to that? The connection will be that we will have to say that there is some kind of a delay in here as well. Ve'lo yitbashashu, they were not delayed. What can it relate to? What was Adam and Eve not delaying? Rather, they were not waiting, but they were premature. If you're not delaying, then you're taking something too early. What did they take too early? What would Adam and Eve have taken earlier than prematurely and not waited the correct time?
The fruit.
The fruit, exactly.
Might be wheat, they say. But
okay. Whatever Hashem told them not to eat, right? Whatever.
They were not taking it too early. Sorry, I misunderstood you.
No, so they took it
They
too
took the food too early. God said, "Don't eat." They ate.
They did, but they didn't yet.
No,
it says
no,
they
no,
were not ashamed.
Exactly. So they were not delayed.
Yes.
They were not delayed. If they are not delayed, then what does it mean? What would be the opposite?
They are ahead.
They were ahead. That's it. And the next thing which the Torah tells us in In chapter 3, the Torah rolls out exactly in very little detail how they did it, okay? But in here, in that word, you've got a hint to this, that they ate it prematurely. So when Hashem told them not to eat, and this is something which is very important, it's got to do a lot with something which we do on Shabbat. Everybody knows that we are eating a specific bread on Shabbat. Friday night, Shabbat lunch, and Shabbat Seudah Shlishit, if we do it, we are eating a specific bread. What's that bread called? Challah. What has challah got to do with the word bread? What is challah actually?
It's a sweet, plaited bread.
Okay, so that is when you go to Grozinski and you say, I want a challah, and they know that they are not going to give you a granary bread, but they will give you a sweet, flattered bread. That's absolutely correct. But where in the Torah have we actually got the word challah and what's meant with it? Any idea? Ladies which are baking challahs, no? Do you remember the challah bake? Have you ever been to a challah bake, a big one, Shabbos UK or something?
I haven't been to a big one.
Okay.
So there was lechem.
Lechem is bread.
Yeah.
But if you next time participate at a challah bake, maybe we will do one ourselves. And what you will see is that when you have got a dough which is bigger than a specific amount, usually it's 1.5 kilo, yes, then you have to take away one piece and give it to the Kohen in the time when the Kohen is in purity, in the times of the Bet HaMikdash.
Is that not last week?
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, there were one of the second last mitzvah in Parsha Shlach. This is the mitzvah. Or today, when we don't have Kohanim which are in their purity, then we wrap it up and we burn it, or we throw it in the garbage, right?
Make sure it's unedible.
We have to make sure it's unedible because we don't want anybody to eat this, right? Now that is what is called challah. But if we really think about the word challah, then we have to look even for that mitzvah, what has this word challah got to do with this mitzvah? Because according to what you are telling me, that when you go to the bakery and you ask for a challah, you get the sweet flattered bread, then in this case, do we only have to take away a piece of the dough when we bake bread, or do we do this also when we bake biscuits? And the answer is, any dough which we bake. It's not necessarily for the sweet colors, for the flattered bread. It's for any dough which we are doing, which is heavier than 1.5 kilos. This is where we have to do it. So it can't be that it's connected to that flattered bread. What is it then?
Well, ma'achal means food, doesn't it?
Yes, but it's not. Ma'achal food is with a chaf, and there's an olive in there. Would have been a good try. So let's reduce the word to the root. No, that's called. That's also with a chaf. Challah, you spell chet, lamed, hey. So what's the shoresh of it? Chet and lamed. Chet and lamed means chal. Chal, the word chal, as weird as it sounds, but what chal means is to get something into effect. Okay, so let's go away completely from the bread and let's do something in the commercial world. If you are going to buy a car and the guy gives you a contract, or you go to buy a flat or a house, or you rent a flat, or you rent a house, and you've got a contract, you sign the contract. The moment you signed the contract, this contract came into effect, and who is now the new owner of the house? You, because you signed the contract. Okay? Anytime when something gets into effect, we are speaking about a chalot, or a chal. Chal is the verb, yeah? It becomes, you make it come into effect. Huh?
What's the word?
Chal, there's no one English word for that. It's very complicated. But what it means is to let something come in. No, to let something come into effect. But if you say effect, and there are different effects, you can. That's the wrong thing. But can you exchange that word into something else?
Confirm, affirm,
no.
Effect, to affect something.
Effect, yeah.
What do you mean?
To affect something.
Well, when I go like this?
No, to affect something is that when, for example, when you were 17, When you were 17, then that moment, that minute after midnight, the effect in you was that you can now drive.
Oh, hang on, but so maybe there is if you finish the end of the word. So does the or the la have anything to do with the rest?
No, so that's amazing. Now
It might be something a bit more.
Now you got the point. So now I just explained to you what chal means. Yeah? Now what has this?
Modern Hebrew word.
No. Now what? Yeah, this is the same word. Now what has this word got to do with baking challah? Because as long as you don't separate that piece, that the whole dough is unedible. It only becomes edible if you took away that part. Then it made the effect on the rest that you can eat it.
If it's over 1.5 kilos.
Of course, we are talking about if the whole dough was originally obligated to separate that piece, then you have to separate it. If you do not separate it, you cannot eat the rest. If you do separate it, then from that moment you are allowed to eat the rest. Very important to understand, right? So effectively what it means is by taking away that piece, we are making the effect on the rest that it's now allowed to be eaten. Yeah, you follow me? Good. If we see this like that, and this is exactly what happened with Adam and Eve as well. Adam and Eve were two people.
People messaging on the.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's Adam and Eve. They were two people, or effectively Adam himself. He was a person who would have completed the creation. The last thing which Hashem creates in the 6 days, besides the 10 things which we listed 2 weeks ago when we learned the Mishnah in Avot, right? Adam would have been the last thing, and that would have been the completion of the creation. How would the creation have really been completed in the most perfect way if he would have followed exactly the instructions of Hashem? But there was one small corruption in that. And that was that he did not listen and he did eat the fruit which Hashem told him not to eat. Yes? And who caused them to eat this? Unfortunately, we have to say it, yes? But the ladies, the woman, the female, she made him eat it. So she caused him to sin. And therefore, the completion of the creation wasn't complete in a way that it could have been complete. Therefore, the female is carrying that guilt with her until the end of all times. And the only way that she can correct it is by baking challahs on Shabbos. Because, not on Shabbos, but for Shabbos on Friday. Because when she separates challah from the dough, then she shows that she is sorry about what she did at the very beginning. Because as I explained before, that when she does a mitzvah, yeah, when she does a mitzvah by separating a part of the dough from the big dough, this is a mitzvah. Yeah. This mitzvah is a reminder of her sin which she did originally, that she corrupted the completion of Adam, not of Adam, but of the whole creation. And through doing this mitzvah, through doing a mitzvah with something which is also bringing into effect, she's bringing that dough into effect. So through doing a mitzvah in bringing something in effect, she corrects a sin which she did by bringing something into effect. Yeah, you follow me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but how does challah make an effect? What's what?
Because it makes an effect to the rest of the dough. Although if you don't take challah, you can't eat the dough.
But many mitzvahs do that.
Which way? Give me an example.
Mm-hmm.
Give me an example of another mitzvah where you have to do a specific thing which is connected to a woman. Yeah, you could argue that you have to take truma and maser and other tithes which you are taking from other things. That's true. But this is not connected to a woman. Who is usually the baker in the house?
Man.
Man.
Who bakes in the house?
Woman.
The woman, of course, yeah. Right, so that's why it's a mitzvah specific for the woman.
And so the direct meaning of challah is?
The direct meaning of challah is to bring something into effect. And this is actually the real, when you go to Kozinski and you buy the flattered bread, then you shouldn't ask for a challah because that word doesn't really translate the bread. You have to say, I want a sweet flattered piece of bread.
No,
But nobody will understand what you know, of course. So that's the thing.
Is it a feminine word? No,
Yeah.
you don't have gender. It's not a
Probably
gender.
yes, because it has a hey at the end.
Come on, say.
Yeah,
Like-
it is feminine word.
Like Isha. Halal.
Yes,
Isha.
exactly.
So,
It is.
yeah, you could argue that.
It is a feminine word. Okay, but this is actually, so why do I bring this all? Because that has got to do with the word loit bashashu. If the woman would not have corrupted this and would have allowed the world to be completed as it was originally planned, then there would have been no problem. Nobody would have been ashamed, nobody would have had a problem, and everything would have gone in a complete different direction than it now went.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So that is that point here. Now we can start the next. Any questions?
No, just an observance, but
Okay.
observation.
So we can start chapter 3. Let's see if this. 1 second. Yes. You know what? Let's do Rashi on 25. Veloyid bashashu shelo hayu yod'im derech tzniut. They did not understand. Wie sagt man tzniut in English?
Modesty?
Modesty. They didn't understand the laws of modesty. Le'afrin ben tov le'ra, to separate between good and bad. ואף על פי שניתנה בו דעה לקרות שמות, לא נתן בו יצר הרע עד אכלו מן העץ ונתן בו יצר הרע וידע מה בטוב לרע. This is a very important point. To be ashamed, what do we need for that?
Knowledge.
We need knowledge. We need wisdom. Now, can we argue, could we say that Adam had no knowledge and no wisdom? We can't say that.
Everyone.
No.
Definitely not. Then what's the best proof that he did have knowledge and wisdom? We've got the proof from
He named animals.
Exactly, because he named animals.
Yeah, but
How?
that's not his knowledge.
It is his knowledge. It's not his knowledge, but it's his wisdom. Why not?
So Shem put it in.
Any knowledge Hashem puts in your head. Any knowledge Hashem puts in your head.
Why learn it?
Well, if you learn something, then you can also only learn it if Hashem gives you the tools in your brain to understand what you're learning. Otherwise, you can also not understand what you're learning. So there is a specific amount of knowledge and wisdom in your brain which you can then develop into something different. This is a clear-cut case. So the point is that what Rashi points out is, if we say that Adam had the possibility to call animals names and to find the correct name to each animal, as we have pointed out in the past weeks, then how is it possible that he was not ashamed? He must have been ashamed. He must have had knowledge. So Rashi says,
Well, there wasn't anything different there. He didn't know of anything else.
exactly that. That's exactly the point, but we have to add on a small point here. How did he know that there was something else? Even after eating the fruit, you could also argue he didn't know anything else. What did the fruit change in him? So that fruit from that specific tree was a fruit which its ingredients are tov vera, good and bad. As long as they didn't
So in
eat,
that case, he had to eat it.
no. Well, 1 second. It's very interesting what you're saying. It's an amazing point. What the farmer says just now, because I'll tell you why. But let's not jump too quick. The point is this: when they ate the fruit, they ate an object which its ingredient is good and bad. Before they don't eat it, there's no good and bad inside them. The good and bad will be outside, and that's where it is. The moment when they eat it, they've got it inside them, and now they can't remove it from them.
So
Exactly. That's exactly the point. The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination and the good inclination are inside them through eating that fruit. Now Nechama says an amazing thing. So Nechama says, in this case, this was absolutely necessary. They had to eat it, otherwise how can you have challenges in your life in the future? And this is the way of thought which Maharal has got, and others, some Hasidic speak about that a lot. That Eve, when she gave Adam to eat that fruit, and when she ate it herself, that's exactly what she wanted to do, because she thought to herself, how can we have a world, how do we want to connect to God if we don't have challenges? We need challenges because that is the tool how we connect to God. This is the way to connect to God. If we don't have challenges, how do we want to do this? So she specifically went along and she ate it, and she gave it to her husband to eat, so that that system should be implanted in the human being, that only through challenges we will in future connect to God. That's exactly the
But how
point.
did she know that existed?
Because she knew that there was, if there's something which Hashem tells us not to eat, there must be something good about it. Otherwise Hashem wouldn't keep it back from us. And obviously HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted them to eat it, but Hashem didn't want them to eat prematurely. Hashem wanted them to eat it only on Shabbat. Who is everyone? That's only your nursery teacher when you were small, 5, 6 years old, because that's the only way you can learn it. Huh?
Still people that keep saying it's so bad.
Really? That's terrible. So, more about that we will speak in the future weeks, because this is a massive, big topic, and I would like everybody else also to get a bit of a taste of it. So, I'm wishing everybody a good evening, and we'll see. Ich habe es nicht betont, weil ich zu spät transferieren.